Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this MS Focus event. We're delighted to have hosting for us today Dr. Mitzi Joi Williams. Dr. Williams is a neurologist and serves as the founder and CEO of the Joy Life Wellness Group, Multiple Sclerosis Center in Newman, Georgia. In this position, she provides personalized multiple sclerosis care delivered with expertise, compassion, and joy. Dr. Williams is considered a subject matter expert in neurology and multiple sclerosis. We're very grateful to have her with us tonight, hosting this panel discussion for Black History Month. And Dr. Williams, I'll turn it over to you to introduce our panelists.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Casey. And I am so excited just to be a part of this amazing panel discussion, even though I am not a person living with MS. I'm very excited to talk to these wonderful MS advocates, influencers who are living life on their own terms. So first we'll go around and I'll have everyone introduce themselves before we get started with the program. We'll start with Victoria.
I knew I'd be first. Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria Reese. That's my little one, Harper, in the back coughing. And I am a patient living with MS, or a person living with MS since 2012. And I'm also the founder and president of WeAreILL, which is a patient advocacy organization that specifically promotes awareness that Black women get MS too, and unites us.
Awesome. Damian.
Peace, y'all. Damian Washington. I have had a relapsing remitting MS for 5-6 years. I've been diagnosed, and I run a YouTube channel, No Stress MS, that has over 5,000 subscribers, and people check in with me to listen to me talk about MS.
Awesome. All right. And Shambrekia.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shambrekia Wise. I work for the government. I work for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, but the joy that I have right now is Sightseeing with Sandy. I co-author that children's book series with my little girl, and it's a travel-based book series that exposes the world to a lot of kids that otherwise would not be able to see it. So that's been really awesome. And I am actually diagnosed with relapsing remitting and have been since 2015. So very nice to be here. Thank you all for having me.
Awesome. Well, it's Black History Month, right? We're here to talk about the Black experience with multiple sclerosis, so to kind of frame us, MS is a disease we've known about since the 1800s. Didn't have any therapies or approved treatments until 1993. And something else that hasn't been apparent in the history of MS is that MS actually occurs in Black people. So I remember during my training where we didn't talk about MS occurring in Black people, we mostly talked about young white women. And although when we look at the incidence around the world, that's still the most affected group here in the US, we're finding that the risk may actually be highest in Black women and the incidence highest in Black people. So I think that this is a very important topic for us to talk about. And so I'd first like to start with each of you just kind of giving us a little bit of about, or telling us or sharing with us a little bit about your journey with MS and kind of how you became diagnosed.
I will go first. So it was during a time that was very high stress for me. In 2015 is when I was diagnosed, but 2014 was actually when I lost my grandmother during the Christmas holidays. And she was like my biggest cheerleader, and nobody can take the place of a mother. But then, when there's a grandma that's like running in the paint for you, that hurts and that hits home. And that was something that, still I'm sad about to this day, but I'm at peace with it. But still, like, with that happening, and then I was going through a divorce and adjusting to being a single mom, it was just like high stress all day. And so one evening I was taking care of my little girl, and my dog, he had been very like anxious around me during that time. It was about maybe 2 days at that point. And when I was trying to pick my little girl up out the bathtub, he actually jumped in between us and he separated us and he bit my arm. And he didn't draw anything, but I mean, it hurt. And I had had him since he was 6 weeks old, and he had never done anything like that. And so I was like, yeah, you're about to be homeless. And so I didn't know what was going on. And then like the next day, I noticed this tingling sensation going up my arm and like almost radiating down my legs. And I'm like, this dog gave me nerve damage. What is going on? And so I actually ended up going to the ER. And so you don't just walk into an ER pre-COVID at this point, right? And just say something like, oh, I have tingling sensations and I can't really feel anything on my left side and think you're going to have a chance to sit down. No, that was the quickest I had gone back. And I was like, what is going on? And I'm like, it's a dog bite. And so, no, they ran CAT scans, they ran blood tests, they ran all the things. They did a stroke analysis. And I'm like, what are y'all doing? And I'm like, I work for such and such. Like, this is what's wrong with the healthcare system. Like, why are we doing all these added things? I'm here for a dog bite. And I was like, nobody's looked at my arm. I'm like having my own discussion over here. And they're like, yeah, you're not a doctor. I'm gonna need you to stay in your lane. So after everything came back, my doctor came in. He said, I need to do one more thing. I want to do an MRI with a contrast. I'm like, don't you think that's a little much? And he said, no. He said, because what you're telling me is not lining up with everything that we've searched for. He said, but I have an idea, but I'm not going to say anything until we get results back. And so once he got the results back, he saw the lesions and he said, you know, my nephew was just diagnosed with MS and his symptoms were very similar to yours. And he had known about the dog bite story. And he had actually asked me how long I had my dog. He said, the fact that you've had your dog all his life and he's never done anything like that, he sensed your chemistry's changing. And he said, so he knew to protect the baby because he sensed something different about you. And I was like, whoa. So yeah, I started a round of steroids. I was admitted into the hospital for 3 days. And once I was released, I actually went home. And at the time, my now ex-husband, he of course had the baby, and the dog was still at home with me. And the dog knew not to jump on the bed, period, point blank. But when I laid down, he got on the bed and he stretched his body across my legs, and my legs were actually bothering me. And I was like, "You've been trying to talk to me." And so, yeah, that dog got steaks forever. Like, I was like,
All the
for the
stakes, all
win.
the stakes.
But yeah, like, and now like he's trained better to not bite me if anything were to happen. But thankfully, I'm on a DMT that works very well for me. I've not had any issues. But even if I'm like kind of pushing myself a little bit more than what I should, like my body, it won't, go into a relapse or anything like that. But I get a sense of like I'm getting stressed out. He'll like nudge me. He'll be very attentive, and he'll just be like, hey, like you need to chill. So I like the fact that we've adjusted to each other, and he still has a home and I'm not getting bit. So we're good.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. There's so many things that you said that we're going to come back to. All right. But let's get Victoria next, and then Damian.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed in September 2012, and I had just moved to Los Angeles at the time. So I was 25 and having a really good time. Let's just say that. And I was just starting my career, and that's why I had moved to Los Angeles to really dive into it. And I started to feel numbness and tingling in my legs randomly at work, and it would just keep happening. And I just was like, I know my legs aren't falling asleep this quickly. This is just the weirdest thing. So it kept happening. And I decided to go to the doctor because I could no longer wear heels and I couldn't walk down the stairs. And I was like, it was really disruptive. Like I'm walking to my car and I have to sit down or crawl to my car because I'm like, cannot walk anymore. And it was just, pushing myself to my limits. So when I went to my primary care physician, he asked me where I worked. And he said, I told him where I worked, and he thought it was just stress. So he sent me home, and I know we're going to talk about some other things, so that actually affect my story. So I'm going to leave that out. But long story short, I end up having this excruciating migraine one day, which I never get. And I go to that same doctor the next day because the end result of that headache or that migraine that lasted like 10 hours was my face being numb. And I'm like, did I have a stroke? Like, I don't know what was going on. So he had me get some MRIs done. The first time when it was in my legs, he was giving me MRIs on my legs, but nothing was coming up. But this time when I told him something was happening in my face, he had me get more MRIs done on my brain. He saw lesions, assumed or thought that this would be MS, sent me off to a neurologist, and the rest is history. I had about 9 lesions on my brain, and they said that it was relapsing MS.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Damian?
That all sounds about right. Essentially, I am a very high energy dude, and I've done about 35 national commercials and voiceovers, and I'm making content and video and doing work and running around Hollywood trying to be on TV longer than 30 seconds. I'm having increasingly less energy, and my gait is starting to get wonky, and I can make it less and less down the block. And one day my wife and I went for a walk, and I could make it barely halfway down the block. I came back home, took off my shoes, and instead of sitting down, I fell. And I was looking at the ceiling, and she's like, well, we've been to 3 different doctors. We don't know what's going on with you, but we are going to emergency care right now. We are not leaving until we know what's wrong with you. That MRI, that person did not really know, but said to get an MRI. The MRI was like, this dude's totally healthy. He totally has multiple sclerosis. He should get a neurologist and get that checked out. And that was about 5-6 years ago. And because I hit marks and state lines and make content all day, I started making content about MS, and now I'm talking to y'all.
Amazing, amazing. So there's so many themes that I'm hearing here. Some of it advocacy, having people that can support you throughout the journey and kind of help advocate for you, get to that second or third doctor, advocating for yourself, saying, I know something's wrong. One of the things that we recognize is that there are a lot of people who can or who have experienced some bias within the medical system. There's some instances where, Shambrekia, you went to the ER, you may be reminded that doctor of a family member who had similar symptoms, and you had that workup pretty quickly. But let's talk about kind of in the beginning, did you all feel like you experienced any bias within the medical system in the beginning or during the course of your journey with MS?
I felt like, okay, so this is the part that I left out of my story that I said I was going to come back to. I went to my primary care physician, and this was in Beverly Hills, California. And I was working as a Hollywood assistant at a talent agency. And I was one of the only Black assistants there, Black people in Beverly Hills. And so the demographic of the patients or people, customers coming there were not like me. And when I told the doctor, he asked me what I did for a living, because he assumed that everything was due to stress, which I'm sure it was, but he said, you're dealing with stress, and if you keep doing this, it's going to affect you. Do you want to lose your hair? Do you want to do these things? I'm like, no. And he prescribed me antidepressants. And instead of getting any tests done, anything, he didn't send me to a psychologist or say meditate. He didn't do any of that. He literally, the first thing he said was, this is due to stress. Here are antidepressants. Here's a prescription. Go about your day. And I was like, I don't think that that's it. I'm not, I've never been depressed where I needed antidepressants. So I can't say that I'm not, but I don't think that I am. I'm not. This is something different. And he didn't listen to me. So I felt that he wasn't taking me seriously, that he just knew me. He knew my body, knew my circumstance better than me. And I don't feel that the first thing is to give antidepressants. I feel like that would be like a third step. Outside of maybe some more natural or holistic methods, or even having a psychologist or psychiatrist write me a prescription, it was my primary care physician who should be giving. That's all I'm gonna say.
She's having a good time.
Harper's like, no.
I don't positioning on your behalf.
Exactly. But my point was, this is a doctor that you see for a common cold who should refer you to a specialist to things like that, who was already giving me antidepressants when this was my first visit with this situation. So
Yeah.
I felt like that was a bit biased.
Yeah, so it's important, first, for people to actually listen to people when they come in to be seen, so numbness and tingling is not a common symptom of depression. And if you think someone's dealing with depression, that's always the last thing, or should be the last thing on your list, right? After you do a reasonable workup, right? And then if you do a workup and everything is normal, then we might come back and say, okay, well, maybe this is stress. But certainly that shouldn't be the first thing that happens. And again, there are many who feel like MS, doesn't occur in that demographic, in your demographic or your group. So if they look at you and they say Black people don't get MS, then it won't even be at the top of their minds, unfortunately. So I'm sad that you had that experience. Does anybody else have any experiences they'd like to share?
I had one, but it was long after my diagnosis. So I had got up on game and realized, oh, these things can trigger this. Like, I'm still learning my body and what its blueprint was, if you will. So I was doing a lot, but it was significantly less than the level of stress I felt when I first had the onset, but it was still a high stress time. I had just had a relapse, actually, because we were trying to find a DMT that was working. I had started one drug and then we had to stop that, start another one, had to stop that. And I think, honestly, I was more concerned about being off of a medication than I probably should have been, because I was worried about what could happen while I was pretty much just left so vulnerable, if you will. And so I felt a relapse, like not even a relapse, but a flare up. I should say flare up. I felt a flare up coming on, and dog over here, he's like being more attentive. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. I hear you. And so I went to the ER because I was like, I don't want this to, fester too long. Like, if they can just get me started on some steroids, I should be fine. No admission. Like, we're good. Doctor was like, yeah, I think it's just stress. I was like, sir, I was like, I'm telling you all the symptoms that I'm having. They totally line up with the flare up. I'm not asking you for Valium, opioids, nothing. I want like steroids to get me through a few days until I can talk to my neurologist and we see if we need to do anything different. But I had an emergency and I needed to go to the ER. So with him, I took care of him because I got in touch with the administration. I told them, I said, y'all really need to stop ignoring Black women when we tell you something's wrong with us. I said, period, point blank. It just should not happen this way. I was like, nobody bothers to look to see what I do for a living. And I don't know why. I was like, but what you're not going to do is treat me like someone who is completely ignorant. And even if I were not aware of things that happen, I still don't. I don't deserve less than the other person that may look different for me. I deserve the best of treatment still because you took an oath to take care of me. Taking care of me means that you're listening to me. And that's not what happened that night. So, yeah, I got some of my bill written off. And I was good. And then I ended up talking to my neurologist. He got me around to steroids and I was just fine. But yeah, I can definitely identify with Victoria in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how it sounds like self-advocacy is extremely important, which we know, right? So how do people advocate for themselves? And in turn, how do they find that team, right? That team that works for them, that healthcare team, that internal medicine physician, that neurologist. How do they find that team that can best help them treat their MS?
I'm just going to jump in here and I'll say that you just got to keep going. Depending on what city you were in, depending on where you live, is your access to neurologists. However, having one person's viewpoint about your condition, that's useful and that's great. And if it is available, it sort of behooves you to find someone else to look at the same data to see if they come to the same conclusions. And then you find your own way through. That's sort of the most important thing to instill within someone, the volition forward to understand that one person, one thing it will not be the end all be all of their wellness, and that it's a little from this, a little from that, for them to have their own understanding of themselves, being in touch with themselves, and if something is on or if something is off. That's the main thing I would say.
Yeah, so one of my friends described it kind of like a haircut, right? So if you go to a stylist and they give you a bad haircut, are you going to keep going there and getting bad haircuts, right? And I know that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but sometimes people get, in with a doctor and they're scared to leave, or, I talk to people all the time on my podcast about, hey, fire your doctor. If they're not doing a good job, if you don't feel like you're being listened to, your concerns are being heard, then by all means, seek care somewhere else. Are there any other tips or thoughts that you all have? It looked like Victoria was ready to say something.
Yes, I think it's a very layered answer. So I think, so a few things that worked for me, I guess I can only speak for me. My healthcare team, one, it takes a while, right? Like it takes a while to navigate your own MS journey as a person living with it, understanding the nomenclatures, the titles of things, the wording, understanding the process, understanding how your neurological exam is going to go. Like it takes a while to just kind of get in the groove of it. And I think that's when you'll start to realize, okay, me and this doctor don't really vibe, And I think you hit the nail on the head about you can fire your doctor. Like one, I call it a professional patient. After a while, you become a professional patient, especially when you have MS, because you go to the doctor so often. You start to see the same things and you start to understand the conversation that you have with your doctor. So one, do you mess with your doctor? Like, do you feel more comfortable, or would you feel more comfortable with a Black doctor? Or if you're a woman, with a female doctor? Would that make you feel, maybe you're a man and you want a female doctor. It doesn't matter. Maybe that's comforting to you, but are those things factors? And being honest with yourself in that. Because I think before you become a professional patient, you probably just go to the doctor for a common cold. And you don't really have to really master this patient journey. But once you're there all the time, you're like, okay, I need a doctor that speaks to me how I talk to my, my friends or my peers. I had an older white male doctor at first. And at first I just felt, well, this is the first doctor I had, and this is just all I know. And he wasn't bad, but it wasn't great either. I didn't feel like I could be myself, or that I feel like I just went to the appointments and was like nodding, yep, and then I would leave, versus finding a doctor that we have good vibes and we have a good rapport. And I don't think that before I was an MS patient, did I look for those things. I was just going to the doctor, to go to the doctor. And also the tables were turned. I felt like I worked for the doctor. I don't know. Like I didn't know that I had the power as a patient to say, you're not listening to me. And if you're not listening to me, or if you're not giving me this test that I believe that I need, can you put that on my medical record that you're refusing to give me this, or at least try it out, or, getting a second opinion. Most people don't get a second opinion. And I don't know why, but I was one of them. But I just think those types of things, it takes a while to get in your groove. And I'm a huge advocate of really promoting that even before you get diagnosed with anything, like just being on top of it. So all of those factors are, things that I think help get your healthcare team.
Absolutely. Anything you want to add, Shambrekia?
I totally agree with Victoria and Damian. I go into the room knowing that I'm the client and I have the ability to pick and choose who I want. And I'm thankful that I do live in a place that gives me that accessibility. My doctor, my primary neurologist, is actually in DC. And I shout him out all the time, Robert K. Shan. He's amazing. And I loved him because I felt like he understood me. And even though it's been a pandemic, we've done our Zooms and everything like that, I've still been able to manage during this time, even being far away from him, because of how well we operated pre-COVID. And then even just from day one, like he empathized with me. I think my first appointment with him was like an hour, and he just sat down and he was like, neurologist, shrink, big brother, all the things. And I appreciated that. And we never really had another appointment like that until I had my first relapse. And he just empathized with me again. And I mean, just knowing that I have someone that really is on my team and that truly wants to educate me so I can be aware of what I need to know when I'm not with him, that makes a world of difference. And it's also like a confidence booster to me because I trust him. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, echo everything that Victoria and Damian said.
Yeah, so it sounds like some of the themes that I'm hearing are, make sure that you find someone that you can trust, that you have a good relationship with, that you feel like listens to you. And if at first you don't succeed, keep trying, right? I saw a comment in the chat about, there are some parts of the US where there aren't MS specialists or neurologists that are familiar with MS. But certainly, there are some places like I'm in Atlanta, we have 4 MS centers, and then there are other parts of the US where there aren't any. But certainly, with technology, there are ways that neurologists can reach out to specialists. I often have some people that will just come to me for a second opinion, and then they may go back, So, if you think about connecting with a specialist for that second opinion, you can do that one time just to kind of get an overall plan and then go back. So there are many different ways, to coordinate care. Now, we talked a little bit about kind of finding your healthcare team. Now, let's talk a little bit about finding your tribe, so to speak, right? So I always emphasize to my patients that it's not only important to have support, right? We have family, we have friends, who are often a great support and kind of help us stay on track. But I also think that it's important for people to have a connection to the MS community, because as much as I see people with MS and have done this for 15 years, as much as I empathize, I don't really know what it feels like to have MS because I don't have MS. And so there's something about that connection with other people, even if they don't have the exact same symptoms, that are experiencing and kind of going on that journey with you, that can be helpful. So let's talk about how you guys kind of found your tribe, or how you created spaces, where you felt comfortable within the MS community.
I can go.
I was gonna call on you if you didn't, so whoever is right at the bottom of my screen gets called on first. So
So I was, I think people immediately say, or my neurologist said something about a support group, and I was not anti, but I was like, this is cringeworthy for me at the time. I was like, you want me to sit in a circle and talk about this, and overall, I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to. I couldn't even read an article about MS past a paragraph. So I knew that I wasn't ready for that. But when I started to get ready to learn more about my MS, I realized that I wasn't really seeing myself. And then I felt if I do go to these support groups, then I won't see myself in these support groups, because right now this is still looking like an old white woman's disease. And I'm not an old white woman. I'm literally 25 at the time. So I just wasn't really seeing myself in it. And I wasn't seeing, so race, I wasn't seeing myself. Age, I wasn't seeing myself. And I think style, I throw the word vibes out. I hope everybody understands what I mean by vibes, but it's like an energy, a connection, something that stands out to you, something that resonates with you, whether it was marketing materials or website or music or video. I was not feeling like this was a reflection. The things I was seeing was a reflection of me. So I went out to just create my own. And originally, I didn't try to create a support group or a community. I just was honest about what I was going through. And there's a scripture, and I don't know the scripture, but I know the summary of it. And it's like, my sheep know my voice. And my uncle told me that.
And the voice of a stranger they will not follow.
And yes, and basically, something reminded me of that wherever you go, whatever you're doing, whoever you are, if you speak and you speak up and you just be authentic with yourself, that people will come to you. And that's honestly what happened. I was using social media. I told people that I had MS, And my community, that, my network, they weren't familiar with MS. So their connection to MS was me. I was their face of MS. So as the years passed, I kept talking about my experience, and they kept sharing people with me that may have been diagnosed recently or needed to talk to someone, or they wanted to connect me with their cousin or aunt or something. And I started to build my own community. They started to come to me, and I wasn't necessarily looking for it. Once I realized that there were a lot of people like me, and there were a lot of Black people that had MS in the crevices of the world who all felt alone and invisible, then I knew community was needed. And then I was an honest next step. So I created an online support group, which is still thriving and going on. And now I have a community. And that results, I ended up creating a patient advocacy organization that made it really official so that I could really, really be a resource and support the people that were just like me, and be that the thing that I wanted. I could be that for people, and I could create a space for people, and resources and networking and community and all of the things. So that's how I went about finding community. I'm still learning and navigating the community every day. That's my spiel.
I love it. I love it. So being the change that you want to see. I love it. I love it. All right. Who else wants to add?
I'll say my piece on that. So I love like how she started off. She was like, I wasn't trying to hear any of that, but that was me. My mom would get the little magazines and leave them on my table. I have a fireplace right back here, saw many of them. I did not open them up. I couldn't, because I was in denial. I did not want to accept that. Like, I was still trying to find something else that was wrong other than MS. And I just had a day where I just, I broke down and cried, but then I started to be accepting of it. I said, the sooner I stop fighting what's honestly a reality and start beating like this, and working to find out what life is now like for me. Because at the time, the first relapse I had, it was like the whole tingling and weakening on the left side. And then the second relapse, it was paralysis. But I will be the first one to admit, I was pretty much HE double hockey sticks on wheels that entire first year. And I'm not surprised I threw myself back into relapse, because I was just so angry. I was so angry. And I then saw, like, you know what? You got to work with this better. Like, and it was just a wake up call to me and for me to just redo how my perspective was, like, see how I could actually be a benefit to other people. And that was always my mantra before. I said, why am I letting this one thing change me? Like, and I understand how easy it was, right? But it shouldn't. And that was when I literally took back control, and I was able to be more positive and accept the fact that, you know what, this is here. It's not going anywhere. And I'm going to be miserable if I don't change the way I look at it and think about it. And Victoria was one of the people when we had our roundtable in LA. I was like, I was in denial. I didn't want to apply for no type of placard. I didn't need it. And she's like, no, we need that. That is an advocacy tool for us. I'm like, you know what? Oh my God, you're right. I have been awful. So yeah, like having this type of community, having, just the availability to pick up the phone and call one of my other friends that, unfortunately was diagnosed with it. Like, I think we've helped each other too. And we're one and the same, very high functioning, very strong willed. But I think for me, it has shown me places like, you say you're a Christian, and for those of you that aren't, no big deal. But it's like, you got to remember, you're not in control of everything. Like, you're not honestly in control of anything. It's like grace and mercy save you from a lot. But there are some things that's going to happen in life that's going to test you. And how you respond to that, that is what's going to get you through. Not how you feel in the moment, because moments will happen. We're all human. But what are you carrying with you throughout your days? And so when I saw for myself that I'm not trying to be the one to carry something negative each and every day, that I'm able to wake up and see the side of the world, a lot changed for me. And that helped me build a community of people that, you know, either did have MS, had other neurological issues that, you know, kind of mirrored some of what I was going through, or even just people that were having a bad day. It was like people looked at me and they were just like, you know, you do a lot. And that falls deaf on you sometimes, but then it's like sometimes you step back and it's like, I do. Like, and that's cool, but I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't change my perspective. So shout out to Victoria for fussing at me a few years ago. I appreciate it.
Amazing. All right, I'm gonna let Damian go because you know I am just like bubbling over. Y'all are like preaching a whole sermon. That was a whole word. But go ahead, Damian.
It can be a bit strange because you have to do so much when you have MS, and now you have to go to the support group. And now, what if that one wasn't good? And now you're done forever. No, go to another one. And I'm driven by the phrase, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So if I'm feeling uneasy about something, I run chest first into it, even especially if I don't want to do it. And I know that the buck stops with me. And I know that I could put my hopes and my dreams into someone else to just listen to me, into someone else to just hear me. But that person is on their own ride. And what if they didn't hear me today? Maybe they would have heard me the other 364 days in the year, but this was not their day to give a slice of them to me. That can be disheartening. However, one has to remember that this is your ride. This is their ride. And the more you get in touch with that, and the more you sort of understand that you are the captain and the players, you're the arena that everything is playing in. And the more that you do things that you might be uncomfortable with internally, however, it might be beneficial for your wellness, then the more you do that, the better. Who knows? It might work. Who knows? It might not work. And you must continue on and not have that dishearten you from the practice itself or from anything different at all. That's one of the most important things, is to just keep going and to keep running chest first into something that you are afraid of, something that you don't want to do. Because honestly, most of the time, you find wellness on the other side of things that you don't want to do. I found 5,000 people that watch me every day, and I did not want to blog, even though I'd already done over 30 national commercials and voiceovers.
Wow. Wow. Such amazing journeys. And I hear so many, themes. And one that I hear that I'm listening to as a healthcare professional is that people have to be ready, So sometimes when people come to me for that first visit, I'm like, join a support group. But I'm learning, right? That people have to be ready to kind of face their MS, and maybe people need some time to kind of deal with it and let it settle in. I'm hearing a lot about perspective and learning to change your perspective, but also the importance and the impact that other people within the community can make. And one thing that I do also try to encourage my patients is that if there's not a group that you feel like you fit in, make your own. Right? Listen, I had actually a group of young people living with MS, young Black women. And I used to tell everybody, listen, I promise I have 20 people that look like you. They just walked out of the lobby so fast you missed them, right? And they'd be like, no, I'm only by myself. I'm working. Everybody else in the support group, blah, blah, blah. And literally one time I was able to get about 20 of them in a room, and one girl walked in and burst into tears because she was like, oh my God, I didn't know. I thought you were not serious, and I'm like, the community is out there, but I'm so grateful that you all are connecting with the community and being candid and open about your stories and your journeys with MS so that other people can be helped and so that other people can learn. So thank you so much for that. Now let's switch gears a little bit. Okay. I heard some themes about, kind of denial. Let's talk a little bit about mental health, right? So this is often a roadblock, especially within the Black community. The stigma against, getting mental health services is decreasing. There are lots of celebrities now that are talking about mental health and things of that nature. But let's talk about the fact that people do sometimes deal with a real depression after they're diagnosed. Just kind of the fear of the unknown, all of those things, what's going to happen. And that can be very daunting for people. So how do, or what are your thoughts about people seeking mental health when needed? And also in that question, how do you ask for help, right? So many of us are supermen and superwomen, right? We're used to doing everything and carrying everything on our shoulders. And so one of the things that I often encourage my patients to do is ask for help, but it's very hard. So how did you kind of get to the point where you asked for help? And then also tell us a little bit about, what your thoughts are about mental health services and seeking those.
So I will be happy to start that one. When got tired of being so mean and mad about the situation, I was like, this is not me. And like I said, I had my day where I just kind of cried and let it all go. And I just wrote down, like, these are the things I need. And working in healthcare for over 10 years at the time, it's just like, well, 10 years now. Um, I was very well aware of what was an okay thing for me to feel. And then those things that kind of lingered, I probably needed to talk to somebody, but it was normal. I mean, like, I had to literally adjust to a whole different way of life and didn't know at the time if I would get certain abilities back, didn't know if I was going to be completely paralyzed on my left side or not. It was just, it was a lot. It was a lot to take in. It was a lot to handle. Um, and I realized I'm not superwoman. Like, I'm not supposed to carry this much by myself. And there are people out there to help me. And I pay for my insurance to assist me in going
Okay.
through these things. So let me go ahead and cash in on my PPO. and let me see what massages they offer. Like, let me get all the things, because this is something that is going to ultimately not only benefit me as a mom for my little one, but me as a human being, because I have to take care of me first before I can take care of anybody around me. But in order to take care of me, I had to realize I got to be honest with myself. And I knew I just was not my best self. And so I am aware now seasonal depression is the real thing for just a normal human being. But for people with MS, especially like if you are in a place where you don't get a lot of sun in the winter, like, Pacific Northwest, for example, do things to help out. See if your insurance will cover like a sun lamp for you, anything to help you adjust to these things that, are hindering your full potential to live a good, happy day, without symptoms, right? But for me, it's like I try to always just take my time, be knowledgeable of my moods, my emotions. Like, if I'm feeling some type of way, go run, just take a breath. Like, I thank God for the little person I have, because she is so funny and she really helps regulate me. She's like, I think you need a hug. Homeschool has been quite interesting, let's just say that. But she's like, kind of call is that? How long is it going to last? Okay, do you need a cookie break? So she reminds me to, make sure I check in with me. And I laugh about it, but it's real. Like, I appreciate my tiny support system, like, because she's amazing. And yeah, you got to check in for yourself, got to check in on yourself, take your cookie break. It's okay.
Absolutely. Love it. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
I will. I absolutely feel that like self-care, mental wellness checks, and all those things are necessary for everybody. But I realized that when I got diagnosed that I needed to take a step back and like cope, and go through those phases. There's like several stages of coping, which I didn't know, before I had to do that. But a lot, yes, allowing myself to do that and deal with that so that I could accept my diagnosis and accept my new life and my new normal. And overall, I didn't realize the how other people were dealing with my MS would affect me, and that I had to manage that as well. So I definitely started going to therapy after my diagnosis, because I wanted to make sure that I had the right armor to deal with other people's projections or expectations of me or limitations of me, all the things. I needed to armor myself with that. And then lastly, not dealing with, but like being a part of a community. Now I'm a part of community with other people dealing with the same emotional battles that I deal with as a person living with MS. So managing other people's emotions and being a leader Jennifer, come here. Being a leader in the space and dealing with people that may not be seeking that same mental wellness or self-care, how to manage that as well. It's a lot, you know, and I want to always stay positive. So I think it's super important for all of us to seek and maintain our mental wellness for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with everything that's been said. Anything that you have to add, Damian? Mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, no, there's a lot, there's so much, and that's why I'm muted. I'm like, there's not only does the buck stop with you, but again, you have to be the driving force. And whenever you're saying, hey, I need something from someone else and they're not giving it to me, or this isn't happening for me, it's like, when you're doing this, yeah, you got three fingers pointed at you, baby. And it's difficult to sort of live in that, but it is never untrue. So what that means for the individual is individual. And what fits me is not going to fit you, et cetera, et cetera. The most important thing to remember is that perhaps there's a good chance that your spirit came in this bag of bones to have this experience as this person that is breaking down little by little, jankily by jankily, symptom by symptom, to figure out something, whether it's another level of love, whether it's another level of support for yourself, for oneself and others. It's a tough thing to figure out, but self-care is part of that. Meditation is part of it. Like I have messages, reminders on my phone and my computer right now to walk backwards, because that's been something been shown to help the brain start to not communicate differently, but begin to go around those lesions. I have nice quotes and like, what does phenomenal look like? Things that asking myself questions, how can I be better? What else can I do? Can I give myself some rest? How would I speak to someone who is not me, but is experiencing the things that I am experiencing? That's one of the strangest, toughest things to do. However, your wellness not only depends on it, that is actually the center of your wellness.
And that's a great segue into our last little piece of topic. I know we're running out of time, but listen, you guys are dropping so many gems. Listen, I need to be taking notes. You guys are dropping so many gems.
We got to record, doctor.
You know what? You so smart. You so smart. Boy, you're smart. You are absolutely correct. So let's kind of end talking about lifestyle management, right? So one of the things that I'm a firm believer of is that, there's a place for medicine. There's a part medicine plays, there's a part you play, right? And no medicine totally gets rid of the part that you play in taking care of your own health. So I spend a lot of time talking about holistic approaches to MS, decreasing stress. We talk about meditation, we talk about prayer, we talk about yoga, we talk about all the things, right? So what kind of lifestyle modifications or things have you found helpful, to improve your overall wellness? I heard Damian talk about meditation. Share some tips with, our audience about what's been helpful for you or others in your community with multiple sclerosis.
So I'll say the first adjustment I made after I accepted it, I had just like gotten out of the phase of not being as angry, but I was still angry. And the first book I didn't burn, aka my fireplace, it was like, give up fried foods. And it had this picture of a donut. Krispy Kreme is my life. I was mad and I threw that one away because I was just like, it gave me more pleasure to throw it away than it did to burn it.
Throw that one away. Don't tell me who wrote it, but throw that one away. We believe in Krispy Kremes.
I was so mad. I was like, no. And then I was like, but I need to. And so I had a whole come to Jesus moment because I didn't even eat fried chicken. Like I normally don't eat anything really fried on a normal basis, but my donut was my treat. So I still realized my body was not the same and I needed to honor the new space that we were both in. And if that meant giving up donuts, that meant giving up donuts. And I actually made a huge leap to really decreasing my red meat I did go to Chicago this past weekend and I did kind of like break that. But in my defense, that's like a one and done type of thing for a few, like at least a month and a half. Like I'm good on red meat. I definitely don't really do my intake in pork like I used to. I just try to live as clean as I can. Sleep is so important. I'm an entrepreneur, so that's like hypocritical of me to say, right? But I do try to get my sleep in as much as I possibly can. And I just try to stay happy. It doesn't mean that I'm in denial about what may be going wrong or, bad in my day. It's just like I don't let it have the priority that it used to. Because I'm like, been there, done that. It's not worth the whole MS take, for me to go to the hospital. Like, if it's not my dog, if it's not my baby, if it's not me, the world is still going to turn on its axis and I just need to figure out how to roll with it. So it's definitely put me in a mindset of like, truly own the space that you can control and accept, what you can't. But you don't have to wear that. Just because you accept it, it doesn't mean that's something you carry. It's like, okay, that's what it is. It sucks, or it is what it is. That's great. It could change, it may not. Whatevs. I still have to control my little area over here. So just having that mindset has been so rewarding in itself. And I can now drive past Krispy Kreme and not be mad.
I love it. I love it. Who else wants to add?
Um, I will go. Meditation for sure. I go in and out of being consistent with it. As a mom, it's been hard to find a little bit of time, an ounce of time, to do it. But meditation really helped because, and I at first I thought this was something that was not going to do anything, but the way it started my day and the way it centered me and grounded me was amazing. Um, Stress was a big factor for me. It still is. I'm an entrepreneur as well. And feeling like the world is going to end if you do not get that proposal out, send that email, do this, do that, or I got to do it myself because no one could do it like me. I mean, that's my middle name. But, really, I like what she said. Like, the world is not going to end if I don't get to it. And if I don't do it, or someone doesn't do it how I do it, maybe that's for the better. And if it's not for the better, I can always show them and stay on them until they do it how I like it. And then I don't have to do it. So like outsourcing has been my best friend. And really not feeling guilty for outsourcing. I don't need to feel good. I just Instacart. I just got some groceries Instacart. And I'm like, you know what? I feel lazy, but I'm not lazy. I am Instacarting because I have multiple things going on and I would like to get these groceries for my child. So just outsourcing, not being afraid to ask for help. I'm still working through that. And it's interesting because being a leader in the space or working in the space a lot, I think sometimes there's an expectation or an assumption that you have your MS all together. Like I don't, wear myself out or at times, or if I'm not always taking not my medicine, but my vitamins or something like that. Like I may not be on it all the time, but it's a work in progress all the time. So notebooks, journaling, walking, working out, all of the things help out. And like she said about her daughter, I have a little one, so I have to make sure that has really centered me in prioritizing what's important. Like I would push myself to the limit before when I didn't have to. Now I'm like, no way I'm pushing myself to the limit because I have any ounce I have remaining, it's going to my kid. So that has been helpful as well. So yeah, agree with all of the things that have been said already. But just do what's best for you. It's gonna look different for everyone.
Absolutely.
I want to touch on one thing that she kind of ended with.
Absolutely.
Toddlers and babies, they are like the most amazing and intentional reminder of self-care is everything, because they're not going to be wet, they're not going to be dirty, they're not going to be hungry, they are going to be taken care of. And if you don't get the program together, they're going to throw a bottle at you. So it's like we need to kind of harness that same energy. Like, am I taken care of? And especially if it's you neglecting you, you need to act out with yourself and be like, no, this is unacceptable. There's no reason I should have gone this many hours and not eaten. Like, it makes no sense. So yeah, definitely take a cue from the baby. I did that too, and it was helpful.
Absolutely. I've got a toddler too, so I understand, not the MS part, but I definitely understand that, they will not be denied whatever it is they want at the moment. So you better take that nap while they're taking that nap. You might miss it. Damian, tell us, so we're coming kind of close to the end. So tell us, what your lifestyle modifications are, and then I want to go quickly back around. I want everybody to give, what's their best piece of advice to somebody that is newly diagnosed with MS and newly on their journey. So I'll have Damian start. You can give your lifestyle and give that, and then I'll have everybody give that piece of advice.
I'd say step one, no gluten, no sugar, no dairy. Step two, figure out any questions you have. Yeah, you can ask someone else. However, you can find those answers yourself and give yourself 30 trials, 60 trials. I think where I have found my success is that I will do something, and even if it appears to be failing at first, I'm still showing up because I heard that this might be a thing, and perhaps I have not done it enough times. People do things 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It's like, bro, did you do it 50 times? Fam, if you ain't do it 75 times, I can't even speak to you about that. And I say that with such conviction because I lived it. I am that. My channel wasn't successful until video 30. And then I didn't want to make MS videos, but no one watched the other videos I made after that. So by video 40, I was like, fine, I'll make MS videos. And now, here I am. I think that any question that you could have for someone else, ask yourself that question. And then ask yourself if you're willing to do that work. And ask yourself if you're willing to do that work with no result 50 times. And if you are, great, do it. And you might fail 49 times, but if you do something other than fail the 50th time, it's worth it. And that's the main thing that I would trigger someone to continue and fail often. And because life is not about failure. There's nothing but love and beauty in here. It just means that you have not gotten to that part yet.
Love it. Persistence, consistency. I love it. Who's next? Last tip of advice. We got 3 minutes left.
Y'all know I can talk, so come on now. You gotta say something.
Think about what we haven't said, because we
right.
have
said quite a bit.
I think the last thing I would say is just don't forget to advocate for yourself and really understand what that means. I think that, like I mentioned, the common person is not good. If we have an audience full of people living with MS, the average person is not going to the doctor or having a large healthcare team like we do. And advocating for yourself, it's a skill set. It doesn't just come naturally. So don't assume that you already advocate for yourself because you probably haven't had to, or haven't felt inclined to, because you see your health decline because of it, or you see that your trajectory is completely altered because you did not, advocate for yourself. And now, if you are newly diagnosed, you're in a position where you have to be on top of it. And so I just want to encourage people to advocate for themselves and really understand what that means. And when you attend things like this, listen to different scenarios of where a person had to advocate for themselves, because I think hearing from someone else's experience helps hear it when it comes to you, and you know when to do it, and you already know what to say. You already know where this could go. This could go left. This could mean I don't have a good relationship with my doctor. That means it's messing with my DMT or whatever. So just looking into self-advocacy and understanding what that truly means.
Awesome. You get the final word, Shambrekia.
My kid just bought me a cookie. This was amazing.
So we are enjoing the cookie. See that? Literally.
Enjoy the cookie. No, this has been amazing. Just, do it in your own time. But I would say just being on the healthcare side of things, don't take too much, because you don't want to decrease the quality of your life and the value of what you're actually still able to do. Because I feel, honestly, I was very blessed and fortunate My medications are covered, and that is not everybody's story. So that doesn't fall deaf on me. I thank God that I'm able to still do what I was able to do, but I feel like I'm a better person on the other side of this because I am now in a place where I can better empathize with people that may not necessarily be going through what I'm going through, but are just going through something that is really beating them down. And I just feel like on the human side, it's made me a better person. And I would not be able to say that or, kind of like give off that level of love if I didn't learn to still love me too. So I had to do that first before I could give that type of love back out into the world. So for me, I just say take your time, but don't let too much time go by because you still got a life. You still got a life. Live it, be your best, do your best every day. Your best may not be the same every day, and that's fine. But do your best and be okay with that.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you all so much for dropping so many amazing gems. I see that there was a drop in the chat. Victoria dropped the We Are Illmatic website. That's where we can find you. Damian, where can we find you?
YouTube.com/no stress MS, baby. And Damian Washington, typing in any social media thing. I'm a public figure. You're going to find me, baby.
Shambrekia, is there a place you want the people to look for you?
They can follow me and my little girl at Sightseeing with Sandy. So we have some really fun things coming up this spring and summer. I'm really excited about it. So I would love for them to follow those adventures of her and her little buddy Zuma.
Amazing, amazing. And I am the Nerdy Neurologist on all social media platforms. That's how you can find me. And I will hand it back over to Casey to close us out for the evening. Thank everyone so much for your time and attention and for sharing your stories. It was amazing. I learned a lot. I see in the comments that people learned a lot. And I look forward to hopefully being able to work with you all again. Thank you so much. And we'll pass it back to Casey.
Thank you so much, Dr. Williams. I know moderating a panel like this is very challenging, and you were a wonderful host for us this evening. I appreciate you. I especially appreciate that you made the time to do this when you've got to get on a plane tonight. So thank you very much for that.
In about an hour.
Bye.
Thank you to all of our panelists. We really appreciated your insights and your willingness to share your personal experiences. The responses I'm sure you've seen in the chat has been fantastic. We've had some questions about upcoming programs, so I just want to take one moment to let you all know that while this is our last Black History Month program, we will be carrying that theme through into MS Awareness Month in March. Our first speaker is an African-American patient advocate named Tyler Campbell, son of NFL great Earl Campbell. Tyler was on his way to a storied football career of his own when MS caused him to change things up. And so Tyler will be discussing redefining yourself with MS. That will be on Tuesday, March 1st at 7 p.m. Throughout the month, we've got all kinds of interesting topics. We'll be talking about cannabis for MS, participating in clinical trials. We'll have another panel discussion on how to be an MS advocate, and we'll be talking about health equity and so much more. If you're not signed up for our newsletter to get the links to all of the upcoming programs, just go ahead and reply to your registration email for this event, and I'll be happy to tell you where to sign up to get that information. So again, I just want to say thank you so much. First of all, to our Black History Month sponsors, Biogen and Genentech, to Dr. Mitzi Joi Williams, to Damian Washington, Shambrekia Wise, and Victoria Reese, and Victoria's adorable daughter who visited with us as well. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you to all of our audience for your attention and participation. Good night, everyone.
Buenas noches. Good night.